it has been. We're back. And it's been an exciting day so far at the Cleveland Gaming Classic. And I know I got a bunch of people right here that are quite a bit excited. In fact, can you do me a favor and show me that excitement right now? We got some guests in the backstage area. I'd love to hear it. Almost. I'll take almost when it comes to these three. When it comes to these three legends of the video game world, almost is basically like pristine.
Yeah, I'll take it. You're right. I'll take it. Same.
My name is Corey. I'm the program director, MC here of the main stage. And of course, this is the man, the myth, the legend, the player one of the show, Tom Jenkins. And we've got to get the show.
I heard I got a woo out there, by the way.
I thought I did hear a woo.
I hear a woo? I heard one solid woo.
Well,
that was like two.
Let's see.
Let's hear a woo for Corey for doing all this up here.
Woo!
Yo, that's a super woo.
Well, I want to try the woo scale though. Let's see, right?
Okay, they're ready. Okay, all right. Yeah. You look like Freddie Mercury up here.
As much as I'm sure they want to see a guy that looks like a broke Backstreet Boy, I think it's time for us to get the real stars of this show out there. If you're all ready to help welcome our main stage guests here, please let them hear you right here.
That was a good woo. Let's go. So first up, CGC is proud to welcome one of the pivotal players is a key artist with Rare Studios from Super Nintendo to today. His hand at character design and animation has driven us to collect all the jiggies and grab thousands of bananas. Please welcome to the stage renowned game artist, animator, founder of Playtonic Games, and creator of iconic characters like Banjo, Kazooie, Dixie Kong, Ukulele, and many more. It's Steve Mails! That was a good woo, Corey. That was a woo. All right. There you go. All right, get ready for another woo. Next to the stage is an all-around character designer who has surely created a character or two you might have heard of. Donkey Kong? Yep. Rash, Zitz, and my boy Pimple from Battletoads. Woo! You know it. How about those wild, unique characters from Killer Instinct and everybody's favorite, Diddy Kong Racing? He is the guy. Let's dive into some of his memorable characters. Give it up for Kevin Bayless.
Woo!
Oh, these woos are solid out there. Let's hear it again. Let's go.
Woo!
All right, and last but certainly not least, the Cleveland Gaming Classic invites the stage composer of some of the most legendary scores in video gaming history. Recall Midnight Sessions of GoldenEye, anyone? Slap Rizzoli, let's go! Well, this guy is literally the soundtrack of your youth. BAFTA-nominated artist, the composer of Banjo-Kazooie, Viva Pinata, Perfect Dark, Donkey Kong 64, and many more. Oh yeah! And the DK rap, give it up! Let's hear it for Grant Kirkhope! DK. Let's go. How was that, Corey?
Tom, that was pretty good.
Hey, I'm looking for a job next year, maybe. Let's go.
You got a pretty big job. In fact, he's going to head out and do a bunch of other stuff.
I'm going to pass it to you, Corey. Have a good show, guys.
I agree. Gentlemen, first off, welcome to the Cleveland Gaming Classic stage and the show. How's Cleveland been treating you so far?
It's been very good, but slightly jet lagged. So I live in LA now, so I'm 3 hours behind. So getting here at 9 in the morning is a bit rough. So it's quite rough this morning, but I'm feeling a bit better now. But these guys came from the UK, right?
Yeah, it was quite a long journey yesterday, wasn't it, Steve? Then we got up about 4 a.m. to catch the flight at midday, and then we've got an extra 11 hours on top and everything. But we're glad to be here, so thanks for having us. So.
We just seem to be travelling forever, but like Kev says, it's well worth it when we get here. You guys are fantastic.
First world problems.
Now, gentlemen, what I think was really amazing about you guys coming out to the show here, we actually published what I call the pre-show programming for it. And I had a bunch of friends of CGC. They actually submitted the questions, so all of this panel is coming from all the friends out there at the Cleveland Gaming Classic. And I'm excited to dive into some of these questions. But one thing that I think we should start with is this journey that you guys took by being part of this iconic group, this Rare group. You've seen it go through the legacies as it was all part of our formative youth, and now it's become part of a nostalgic footprint that resonates to game design today. So what someone wanted to know out there is, can someone speak to the legacy of seeing where we have come from, the footprint, the growth? What are the most impactful things that you've seen from your time back in the 90s with that Rare Day?
Me, is it? I don't know really. The thing is, right, when you work somewhere like that, you don't realise if it's going to have an impact on anybody, right? You just do your best at the time. So I think we all just tried to do our best. But also, working there, the Stamper family, Tim and Chris Stamper who ran the company, they all treated us really super well, right? And everybody got along together. We had good fun making the games, all the piss taking and the fun, all that stuff that we did back then. Like, it was just a brilliant thing. So we're all in our own teams that we spent most of our time with. We got drunk together, we played together, we worked together, everything was together, right? So it was just such a fantastic thing to be part of. And you have no idea if it's going to last 6 months or 6 years or 30 years like it has now, right? So only you're the people that decide what lasts. It's not us, right? We just do our best and hope for the best, so you never know. And I feel also back then you had to wait for the magazines to review the games because, you know, the internet was super young, so that didn't really happen. So you waited a whole month for like Nintendo Power or whatever it was to review the game. You had no idea if anybody liked it. And like the fact that people still talk about some of these games from we did back then 30 years later is as amazing to us as it probably is to you. So we find that it's super humbling and super heartwarming, but you had no idea at the time that anything that we did would mean anything in 10 minutes, never mind 30 years, right?
It was a long time ago that I started working at Rare, and I think for me, when I look back and I see that everything was on paper to begin with, on tracing paper, and we're drawing everything with pencils, and then it went from that to a pixel editor, and then from pixels to polygons, and now we've got millions of polygons and fantastic ray tracing and amazing graphics and amazing sound. I think that we were really fortunate to be able to get into the industry at the time that we got in, because that's never going to happen again. The evolution, the way that the games have gone, and they look like a movie now. There's nothing that we can do that will make them really look any better. So you can go as far as your imagination can take you. But back then you had to walk away from what you drew and screw your eyes up and look at it from a distance to try and imagine how it would look on a CRT screen on a TV. So I'm really grateful that I was able to see that and see those changes happen during the time I was at Rare up to the present day.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a case of being in the right place at the right time, really. Because I thought, you know, I was an average artist, I was an average animator, but I really tried my hardest. I put in the work. I mean, I'm a little bit self-deprecating, you know. Maybe I'm better than I think I am, but it was just a case.
No, you're not.
Oh, cheers. It was just a case of being in the right place at the right time, and that. And I rather naively thought those years will go on forever, because that golden period of Rare was really only from, shall we say, like 1994 to 2000. So you're saying like 6 years, which looking back now isn't long, but at the time it felt like a long time, because we were all putting in so many hours, apart from Grant, of course. It was always first out the door at 5, while me and Kev were still there.
That's very true.
Me and Kev were still there at midnight slaving away. But when we come to places like this and people come up to us and say, oh, you know, your games, your characters were part of my childhood, that's something that, you know, it'll never not be special, and it's just fantastic.
It's really humbling when people say that stuff that we've done, and everybody at Rare, because it's not just us that we do it, with a lot of people working really hard, that all the work that we've done has inspired people, because none of us set out to inspire anybody. We were just making games, and perhaps something inspired us to create what we created. So it's just amazing to see that, yeah, people took notice of it and it made people smile. So that's the most humbling thing, I think.
What I pull out of that somehow, and just the relationship that the three of you gentlemen have, and I don't exactly know the point to make, but it's the spirit of like camaraderie and knowing that you're going to be in the thick of it, that you have a huge project in front of you, but somehow you find a way to work together to make it all happen. Is there like some kind of real spirit of collaboration when it comes to putting these games together? Obviously, each of you have your own domain: animation, character design, music, of course. How does that work in the world of like video games, like collaborating together, staying up till midnight and then staying up till 5 again because you realize you're just on a tear or something?
I think you have to be quite methodical, just take everything one stage at a time. But you have to have confidence in the leader of the team, which is often the lead designer. You have to have the confidence that that person, what he's asking you to do, is going to be like a good idea. So you can like put 100% into it, and you will. And we were there till midnight because you're completely bought into these ideas that are like coming down from the top. So I mean, that's the only way. I mean, you always want to be proud about what you do, but it makes it so much easier if you've got like belief in every other aspect of the production, really.
I can imagine so, and it feels very much similar to how we put this show together, right? We get on a tear, we figure out how is it that we get to the point. I spent hours putting all the animations, the shows together, so I can feel that spirit of creativity, but this actually leads to a question that was submitted to us, and we've got a great group of people over in the indie developer area. We got a bunch of different areas in Cleveland, Kent State, Cleveland Institute of Art, that are in the world of game design. And someone was just kind of curious where you guys are now today. What does a day in the life look like? How does that like manifest, or is it like so I'm not sure and it just happens however it goes based on what's in front of you?
No, I do the same thing every day, 7 days a week, and it never changes. I start work writing music about 8:45 in the morning, and I go to about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then I get a bit bored, and then I'll go and get the groceries or something else, and then I'll come back, and if I'm busy I'll do a bit more later at night. But I've got to say, being at Rare for that, I was there like 13 years, doing a 9 till 5 job, so you knew to write music, you start at 9 in the morning and you finish at 5, right? And I think a lot of times composers sort of like to sit in a darkened room and wait for the hand of the Lord to hand them a song, right? And be inspired. Like, I don't do that. I'm very workmanlike, I think we all are. We got used to going 9 o'clock, make a start, 5 o'clock we go home, or for me, 5 o'clock they was at midnight. And then the next day, you do the same thing again, right? So it's a great mantra to get into. So I learned to write music at the same time every day. So your mind's ready for it, your brain's ready to go. I need to start writing music at 9 o'clock, 8:45, whatever, right? So I feel like it's a great thing to get into, like that way. I think because sometimes people want to be inspired or inspiration. I don't look at, I'm not like that. I'm just very workmanlike. So.
Personally, I don't tend to really stop because. From 9 to 5, 8 till 4 or whatever hours I work now, they're not as long hours that I used to work at Rare, because Tim and Chris always used to push the philosophy that if you only work from 9 to 5, you only get a 9 to 5 game. Whereas 9 to 5 music.
So true.
When you're a bunch of people and you're 20 of you working on a team together, and once one person starts to go home, then the team weakens a little bit, and so if everybody's there, it kind of encourages you to stay later. And so, we worked very, very hard every day, but we also made sure that we all played very hard at the weekends, and we communicated, we go on holiday together, but now I work remotely from Playtonic most of the week, and I go down to Playtonic 1 day a week, and it's lovely to see everybody and have some human contact. But once I finish doing what I'm doing there for the day, for my day job, I continue doing the same kind of thing anyway. So it's kind of like, it's what I would do if I wasn't making games. I'd find something to do along those lines. So it doesn't really stop.
No, and what I really like to pick apart from that, what you said, is that you find time to play too, because it's very easy, especially in a creative domain, just feel like, oh, I got to do the next big thing. I got to continue to push in that way. And I feel like maybe some of us too, in the worlds and lives that we live in, we just keep pushing. We don't take a stop to breathe and take in the roses. And I imagine, Steve, that maybe based on some of the things you said before, you hopefully get that chance to have that relationship with your team. A fun enjoyment relationship, one that's working together.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us do the crazy hours like we used to, because it was unsustainable. It's just what we used to do, you know, when we were young and we were foolish, and you know, but it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. But there's definitely where we work now at Playtonic. There's definitely a really good work-life balance. You know, no one's been forced to do crunch or any of like the horror stories you hear from the industry. And a few of us do still like go out drinking together and go out for a curry and stuff like that.
But also, I've got to say, like back at Rare, it was before any was like girlfriends or wives, right? So at that point, it was like, well, there was nothing else to do. Let's just stay at work. Well, I didn't, of course, but they did. But I mean, you know, like it was. Then, of course, once the wives started creeping and the girlfriends started creeping, that all came to an end.
I mean, that's pretty brilliant if you ask me. But let's get back to some of the questions that our CGC fans put out there. And there was like one unifying question that kind of pervaded through all the forums. People want to know favorites. They want to know what your personal favorites are, whether it's a character you designed, maybe an animation, or perhaps a track that you made. Can you speak to what is the favorite thing that maybe you've designed over the years? Is there one that stands out to you?
I think that's like trying to choose your favorite child, right?
Yeah, I know.
It's difficult. So
they're the ones asking it.
Well,
I kind of want to know too.
I know. I guess, you know, I feel like, you know, getting to do GoldenEye as my very first game, like I couldn't believe it, right? To get to do that, and the fact that the watch pause music's become this thing that everybody thinks is amazing, that's fantastic. I mean, Banjo-Kazooie was the first game I did all the sound for, all the sound effects, all the music. But equally, you know, later in my career, like working on World of Warcraft, I was a massive World of Warcraft player. To get to work on that was amazing a couple of times, you know, and to get to do 2 Mario games. I mean, for God's sake, if someone had told me in 1995 when I started, I'd get to work on 2 Mario games, I'd think they were crazy, right? So, I'd say that, for me, that's amazing.
Each game was very different to develop, and usually the team was very different. It's a different group of people. Occasionally, the team might go on to continue working on another project and then start to expand and get some more team members. But it's hard because you've got certain memories from certain parts of development on certain teams. But I would say that for me, the Diddy Kong Racing development process was the most fun I've ever had in development. We were all on the same page, we all loved racing, we'd suddenly got this new 3D environment in the N64 to explore, and it was just great fun. But then I loved Killer Instinct because the new technology that we had there, the 3D, the motion capture that I was experimenting with, it was just so different to Diddy Kong Racing. 2 completely different flavours of game there, but they both have a really special place, and you just remember certain days when certain things happened, and you'll never shake those, and you can't buy the memories. They're fantastic.
And just to loop back, and Diddy Kong Racing, let's first say, what a revolution of a game, right, everyone? Like, we hear this game, you can't beat me! I only dreamed to hear Whizpig on my stage. And we got there. There's something about that game, though. It's just so, like, you keep exploring and you get into it, and the same with almost like, you know, Donkey Kong Country 3. There's a whole world that you go and dive into, and it's the unique character designs and everything around it. I'm now speaking out professionally. I just think it was amazing. I had so much fun. And also Diddy Kong Racing, we just get introduced to all these characters, and all of a sudden they have like this legacy, and you don't know what they're about. We slowly learn about Banjo-Kazooie. What about Conker? We see them come out. It truly was such a cool design.
That was really weirdly brilliant the way that worked out, because I got 2 characters for free because Banjo-Kazooie wasn't quite ready, so we managed to get Banjo in there, and I didn't have to design the character or anything. I just took Steve's model, polygonized it, made a lower quality version for the car, and then Conker, of course, got put in there too. So I got two characters I didn't have to do very much work on.
Well, Steve, you alluded to it and talked about Banjo-Kazooie. Do you have any kind of favorite when it comes to design or anything like that? Or is it really just truly that same choosing between your children?
I mean, I'm completely driven by money, so I'm always going to choose what was the most financially successful character.
You know, as they say, this is the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is Banjo-Kazooie. But there's been so many great projects I've been lucky enough to be part of, like the whole Donkey Kong Country. The first two games were so magical, creating that world and working with that technology that the world hadn't seen before. And we were so excited to show people, because in those days there was no internet, so there was no danger of anything leaking out, and that was incredible. But then working for the first time in real-time 3D with Banjo and being able to create a world of our own characters was also incredible. And then more recently, when we left Rare, a few of us left Rare to form Playtonic, just kind of thinking, have I still got this? Can I still do this? Because I haven't had the chance to do.
Look how emotional he's getting about it. His eyes have glazed up.
I hadn't had the chance to do this sort of character game at Rare for many years. So the way that Ukulele turned out as characters, without too much trouble, was a high point as well. But I've got to have a shout out to an old favourite. Got a soft spot for Grab by the Ghoulies. Any Ghoulies fans?
Wow, that's a good shout. And don't worry, Steve, I know the Ohio elevation, that's the water in the eyes, Kevin. Sorry, I hate to say it. So there's another one that kind of was a unified question I saw a couple times on the forum. Again, I think it's going to our friends in the indie developer area, but between Banjo-Kazooie, Battletoads, there's this unique design element that this group that you guys worked with has underneath it. Can you speak to what are the things that inspired you in your creative process along the way? Was there, maybe a 70s cartoon or something that you look back and like, oh yeah, I guess that was truly an inspiration on me?
I just copied Kev's stuff. Like Banjo is basically Donkey Kong with like a longer nose, and most of the Donkey Kong Country characters were just Donkey Kong's mouth, like extruded out to make like the body of a fish or the body of a crocodile.
We had to do that to make. It was a matter of working smarter, not harder. We were trying to reuse assets, and so that's what we did. We borrowed bits and pieces from other models.
Yeah, but I think we tried to play to the strength of each particular game and the system it was on. Like, for example, with the early days of 3D with Banjo, I think like the stylized animal characters worked a lot better than, say, like the human characters in, say, GoldenEye, just because we're able to use very simple stylized shapes that read very well.
And truly, that's kind of what you have to do is, I feel like especially maybe back in that day, and maybe you could speak to it a little bit. Another question that I kind of had was back in those days, you had to do things like reuse assets or find creative ways to recycle things. Disney did it. They did it a ton in all their animation work. Is there any inspiration for you, Kevin, whether it is reusing of assets, the creativity of restrictions breed creativity, or was there some kind of artistic thing that drove your character design?
I think everything I grew up watching on TV. Somebody asked me the same sort of question earlier on about the Killer Instinct characters, and there's a bit of everything that I was a huge fan of when I was a kid. There's the Jason and the Argonauts, there's the Predator, there's Terminator, there's Jurassic Park, all in. But as soon as we got this box of tools with the software, the Power Animator, which is now known as Maya, you just, well, what can I do with this? And I think the software itself inspired us, because there was all of this, what they called natural phenomena. So you could make ice and reflections and fire and gas, and so, well, I've got to use this, and so I'll make a Human Torch character, and I made Cinder, and then I'll make the T-1000, and I'll make it made of ice, and that was Glacius. And I think there was so much material out there that we'd all been growing up watching, and then finally we got this amazing box of tricks that we could actually make things look like they did in the movies. And so we were onto a winner with it, because this box of tricks could do anything. Just had to learn how to use it.
Honestly, that really does sound like some of the things that I do and the things that I do on stage or in between. Truly fascinating, and also you kind of validated my own creative process. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Grant, obviously you have been responsible for some of the biggest earworms of our youth and today. What are some of your inspirations in creating that? Is it, again, that medium of the tools you had at the time? Also, someone definitely asked, and I would love to know, how was it to work with the 007 music score and translate that?
Well, like, I'm a metal fan, right? I've been a metal fan forever, right? I was as a kid, so I was a long-haired Judas Priest fan, right? So to get like a job was like, just to get a job was amazing.
I just want to take a second to imagine long-haired Judas Priest Grant Kirkhope for a second. Can we just take a second to chef's kiss that?
Respect.
Truthfully.
Yeah. So, to get a job writing music was crazy, right? So, but at the time, I was massively into Danny Elfman, the first Batman movie, right? So I just stole lots of that for GoldenEye, and even Banjo-Kazooie, and John Williams just stole lots of that for other games, and just basically stole from all my favourite composers, and just, that's what I do, I steal stuff, right? So I'm not particularly talented, I'm just good at stealing.
Let's say lovingly repurposed.
But also, I think you forget that, like when we worked on GoldenEye, nobody on that team had made a game before, right? None of us had. So we're all like our first time making a game. So I feel like sometimes that's why it's good, because we didn't know what we were supposed to do, what we weren't supposed to do. It was like, that sounds alright to me, yeah, I think it's alright, that looks alright, yeah, let's make it like that, and just made it as you go along. I think even with Banjo-Kazooie, even though that team was super experienced, there were still things that we did just because we thought it was funny, and I feel you get these little small teams of like 12 people, 13 people who made those games back then. Now you've got these giant 200-300 people dev teams, right? And it makes it, I feel like you lose the soul a little bit. And I appreciate that, like, when games get bigger, you can't use tiny teams anymore, but I kind of miss that, talk about it in the morning and do it by the afternoon thing, that doesn't happen anymore. You've got producers and all that stuff that gets in the way of, like,
accountability, man.
Yeah, focus
accountability.
groups and all that stuff, like, so I appreciate that has to happen, but the best games that I've worked on have been the ones where people have kind of done it by themselves without any intervention.
Now, I like this question a lot because it speaks to, I think, two games that you have all had a hand in that maybe are underrated classics, or maybe they are properly rated, but Star Fox Adventure, I think, is one that, at the time was just interpreted in a different way, but looking back at it now, very much ahead of its time. Same with Conker's Bad Fur Day and the space around that. And we'd love to know, especially working with Nintendo, because that must have been an entirely separate thing itself, right? How was Nintendo's influence going on to the final product? What was the spirit of creative collaboration between Rare and Nintendo? Can anyone speak to that at all? It's one of the questions we had before.
No, but I feel like that a lot of times with Nintendo, Tim and Chris used to be a buffer. So when Nintendo was shouting at them saying, where's the game, they wouldn't let us know. We were all just like merrily going along a happy way, and then we got like this kind of protection layer that kind of didn't let us all get, shitting ourselves about not getting the game done in time, right?
Right.
The original Star Fox Adventures, which was the Dinosaur Planet game, we were ready to show that, a portion of it anyway, at whether it was E3 or CES, I don't know, it would have been E3, wouldn't it? And we got to America and we didn't show it because there was a meeting planned with Nintendo to discuss the game, and originally it began with Timber being the protagonist, a two-legged upright bipedal version of Timber the Tiger from Diddy Kong Racing, and we changed that to a wolf, and we nicknamed him Saber Wolf as a nod to Rare's origins with Saber Wolf, the game from Ultimate Play the Game. But then, as time went on, we started changing, adding the other character in, like Crystal, who was originally going to be a cat again. But then when Nintendo saw that, Nintendo had quite a large stake in the company at the time, and they said, well, it's a silly idea to push another game out there which involves a canine character roaming around on a planet, with planet in the title. We've got Star Fox, and people, it's already a known IP. So maybe we can work together and get some kind of marriage of our two universes and create something new. And all I thought was to begin with, well, we've done so much work on it, we'll have to redo everything. But then we got back to the UK, and they were ready to go with it. And I said, well, yeah, I'd love to do it, but I was just a little bit scared of the amount of work that it was going to entail. But they sent myself and Lee Schuneman and Phil Tossell, the main software guy, over to Nintendo, to Kyoto, and we sat with Shigeru Miyamoto and Takaya Mamura, and we sat down and we tried to iron out a story that would work for this new concept. And it worked really well, and those guys came over to see us. Takaya Mamura came and spent a week or so with the team, and we put the whole thing together, and I think we pulled it off, and of course it changed from one console to another, so we watched it evolve, but they were so supportive. They wanted it was in their best interest to make it work, and so and the same with the Donkey Kong character, they were always, we have faxes with a list of mods that say, we need to take this character out, we need to do that, and then we always would respond with, this will mean X amount of work. And so they would look at it, and they would look at a solution. They wouldn't make any rash decisions. You know, they would try and work with us to make sure that we got the game out, and the quality was still great. So they were very easy to work with.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm going to read this question because I think it's just kind of fun, and I just want to put it out there. So someone said, I just got a golden banana in DK64, and they forgot, what sound does that make again?
Oh, banana.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I can't do the voice properly because I pitched it down in software, right? So it's deeper than my voice is. It's like, cool. And nearly get there. I'm there.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to do it. I just wanted to do it. But this person goes on to say, I love DK C2. What advice would you give to an indie developer making a platform? Maybe level design tip. And then bonus points. What alias or disguise would you give King K. Rool if there was a Donkey Kong Country 4? He had like a different skin, obviously, at the end of each game. What skin would you give him if there was a fourth one? Would it be a spaceman? I don't know. Could be. Sonic was going in space at that point.
I think that's an important question that bears a lot more time thinking about than just like,
Indeed.
Off the top of my head. But I could see him as a cowboy.
I could see that, yeah. I could see him in Smash Brothers 2 getting a lasso at some point. I'm into that. Look, that's great. There's a couple other questions here that I think are interesting because it goes back to the idea of Rare being an inspiration point, and there's a lot of contemporaries that we're drawing to in comparison. So speaking of Banjo and Kazooie, we have to think about Nuts and Bolts, which I think was another game that kind of had a whole design to itself that's now being replicated in games like Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We'd love to know, like, what involvement did you have? How do you see that gameplay resonate now to today? What are some perspectives on seeing those things being repeated now, being remastered and being reimagined?
I think Nuts and Bolts gets a bad reputation some of the time, and I feel, I remember when we moved to America, to Baltimore in 2008, and my son was like 5 or 6, and I remember when his friends came over to the house, they always wanted to play Nuts and Bolts because they'd never heard of Banjo-Kazooie, right? They just loved building the vehicles and building submarines and planes, and I feel like it really predates Minecraft, right? Like, you could build anything in Nuts and Bolts. It was completely revolutionary at the time. Just I think that it was maybe not the best idea to make it a Banjo-Kazooie game because people expected it to be a Banjo 3 type game, but I think the game itself and the mechanics were a bit ahead of the time, really, like
truly. Look at the Minecraft.
Yeah, so I feel like I think that really, and I think we originally were going to make Banjo-Kazooie again, but make it as a co-player. We'll make it as a co-playing game, so you can play with your friends on like 4 players on the same level. And remake the game like the high res and all the rest of it, make it look fantastic. And the art people pointed out that it takes just as long to redo Banjo-Kazooie as it does to do a whole brand new game. There's no different, right? You've got to redo it no matter what. So, nuts and bolts got thought about, and Rare we bought the physics engine Havoc for the first time, and there's that game you could play at the start, wasn't it? You could bump blocks together, and that kind of inspired Greg to think of the whole building things out of blocks thing, and so that's how it kind of came around. And I left Rare just before it came out, so I was done with it, right? But I feel like it gets a bad reputation. I think it's only the old Banjo-Kazooie players that didn't like it. I think people who played the game for new and didn't know about Banjo-Kazooie thought it was great. That's what I think.
Yeah, it just wasn't what people were expecting, for better or worse. And as Grant says, the vehicle building system was really good and revolutionary, I think, but it was just... I think the game was marred a little bit by having challenges that didn't really play to the strengths of the vehicle building system. A lot of the time it was, it's another race. But the most fun to be had was always like treating it as a sandbox, like just creating the most crazy things. And I've seen some incredible things that people create online, things that the dev team never thought would be possible. And it's definitely, like you say, a forerunner. It's a bit of a cliche, but it was ahead of its time in many respects.
I can't disagree with you guys. It truly was. And amongst all the different iterations, you guys keep your humor and your frivolity and fun inside of those games, which I always admire. But there's another comparison too, because we are now in a different generation of the main Donkey himself, Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong Bonanza just came out and radically kind of redesigned the character. Fun mechanics, real awesome game, but someone wants to know, how do you feel about the new design and look of the Donkey Kong that's in Donkey Kong Bonanza?
If I'd had the time and the experience and the skill, I would have loved him to have looked as he does today, back when I did it. But we had that software, and we were just given a pile of manuals, and we sort of investigated this and that and the other, and we explored how to model, and we were probably going down the wrong path with things. And I'd already drawn the Battletoads, and I'd created this kind of McDonald's shaped logo for the eyes on the Battletoads, this sort of M shape. And I didn't really see anything wrong with the original Donkey Kong that I was given to redesign, but they wanted it to look different. They specifically wanted it to look different because he hadn't seen the light of day for a good 10 years.
True.
So they said, can you give him that treatment that you've given to this, what was Killer Instinct, the fighting game demo that we showed to Nintendo? So I just modelled very crudely, and not really thinking about how I was going to animate it, this hardwired M shape for his eyes, so it resembled the same kind of Battletoad eyes. But I couldn't animate it. They were just rigid there. I couldn't do anything with it. And so he kind of, he might look up and down a little bit, and we might have fudged things a little bit to give him a little bit of emotes. But now, obviously, Nintendo has spent a lot of work and made him look how he should have looked had I have had the experience in the day to build him to that quality. But I absolutely love the way he looks now, and I love the character. He looks very solid. So yeah, I mean, it's Nintendo's character. They can do what the heck they want with it. So
isn't that true? But there's no doubt that the characters that were designed by this group up here influenced those characters here today. Am I right, everyone? Very much so. It has come out and is we get a chance to engage with them, say for example in the Smash games, and someone's just very curious about the pop gun. Now we'll get to the whole lyric later on, don't worry, it's in the queue with the DK rap, but the pop gun, where did that come from conceptually in DK64? Does anyone have an inclination of that?
I guess I don't really know. I think it was actually a proper gun in the first place. It was a proper gun.
What?
And then Nintendo said, DK can't have a gun, so they had to turn it into something else, so it becomes that kind of weird, not real gun thing, so it's like that.
It's okay to have a gun, brandish a gun in Duck Hunt though.
Yeah. Yes.
Brilliant. Well, we've been doing some heavy questions here, so let's go with one I think is a little bit easier, a little bit of a softball. Can you speak to a favorite game that you've worked on? Is there one that you lay your head on a pillow at night and you say, that's my favorite?
I've just got to go for Grab by the Goalies again, just because just because the obvious answer is like Banjo or DKC, but I feel Grabbed by the Goalies doesn't get enough love, and you know we were really disappointed with the sales at the time because we put as much time and effort and love into that game as we did the Banjo games, and it was more or less the same team. So yeah, we were really disappointed with the reception it got. But I think over the years, people have had a chance to play it again in like Rare Replay, and hopefully there's a few more Goalies fans out there.
I think I mentioned Diddy Kong Racing earlier, but also Killer Instinct. So if I could cross the streams and make Killer Kong Racing, I think that would be my ideal game to work on next.
It is really hard to try and choose, and I mean I've got to work on so many great games over the years. I said before, getting to work on 2 Mario games was amazing, right? I can't believe I did that. But getting to revisit DK in the Mario DLC was great fun to do. Get to do DK again. You know, getting asked to do a track for Super Smash Brothers, getting to do Spiral Mountain for that was amazing, right? I mean, you know, for God's sake, all the Spiral composers, Smash composers are fantastic. They didn't need me to do anything, so it's super nice that they bothered to ask me. But then again, they didn't bother to credit me in the movie, so you know, so that kind of cancels that out a little bit. So I don't know, anything like that.
Well, I want to go to another character that's popped up a lot, and we haven't really touched on them yet. That's Yuka and Laylee, which hopefully people out there have had a chance to play, yes? Impossible Lair is phenomenal, if I may just say so. It was one of the easiest eShop buys I had, and one of my favorite experiences. And it's clearly coming from a pedigree that you guys had with Banjo-Kazooie and a lot of the other games underneath it. I would love to know just where Yooka-Laylee started. What was it? Just going from the next phase in the generation, the founding of Playtonic? Could we get some like small story behind that genesis of that character there?
Yeah, it was very much like Gav, who's in charge of Playtonic. It's very much okay, Steve. We need a buddy duo because we're doing a Banjo-Kazooie spiritual successor. You know, we're going as close as we can to that game. You know, without making it a bear and bird, obviously. So in those days, the team was very small, and I was just given complete free rein. Gav just said, you know, just come up with something, some characters that can do some moves. Yeah, there was a rough sketch of a tiger first, a really bad sketch, but that didn't go anywhere. We all agreed it was. We wanted more of like an underdog character, a little bit of an accidental hero, the way Banjo was, rather than some like beefy tiger. So the next character after that was the chameleon, and then we realised. The potential for the moves, like with the tongs and invisibility, and I had these.
That was so much fun. I love the implementation of all that. By the way,
and we had like the crest colour that would change depending on ability, and I kind of modelled the crest to look like a little cockpit that a second character would fit in, because I didn't know it was going to be a bat. It was up in the air, like, oh, what could it be? Maybe I think a dragonfly was an idea. These things never got made. They were just like ideas that were thrown out there. But they came together. I mean, I alluded to it earlier. They came together fairly quickly, really. So that was good for us, because we only had a finite amount of money before the Kickstarter to get some kind of demo going to launch the Kickstarter with.
As one of my favorite designers says, restrictions breed creativity, right? The things that you have allows you to kind of, we talked about it with the polygons before, Kevin, and obviously Grant with you, the musical capabilities that you had. There's another consistent question theme here that I've been seeing, and that is the concept of ideas that you had before in the past that maybe had to get scrapped, whether it's inside of a game or a concept of the game. People would love to hear any kind of stories that maybe can be shared in that realm, or are we still sworn to silence, perhaps?
So many games were scrapped. I mean, I was at the company a little bit earlier than Steve was, working on the NES, and in those days there would be one software engineer programmer and one graphic engineer, me, working on maybe 3 different games at once. And because he was kind of spread so thinly, the quality of the design wasn't always that great. Nightmare on Elm Street, Roger Rabbit, WrestleMania, every other game I did.
Roger Rabbit, though, I'm glad you mentioned that. I actually kind of love that game.
But we didn't really have a design team, and so there were so many games that we did. Some of them looked amazing, but they came out, they were nearing completion too close towards the end of the era of the NES, and so you could port it to the... I'd love to see Valley of the Kings ported over to the Super Nintendo. But I mean, I did a game called 55, which was a hot rod racing game on the NES. Spent about a year working on that with one software engineer. But unlike Pro-Am that had nice bends, but it was more like driving around in the US actually, there was no bends.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Everything I did was just a right angle on my map, and so there was no skill in it because it was either a sharp bend or a sharp bend. And it came out, it was nearing completion and the system was on its last legs, and so there were so many stories like that, and I'd love to see that set of ROMs for all of the games that was chucked in the bin, because some of them had some really great ideas, but they just weren't implemented right.
I'm sure. And, by the way, you basically described my hometown in Wisconsin with all those roads, just a side note. Another thing that has kind of gone a couple times here on this forum, but this one person put it down really, I think, very funny, and I'm going to just read out loud. I want you to know there's no need for response to this, but the statement goes as follows. Blink twice if this is happening. That being, the canned scrapped Banjo-Kazooie crossover idea comes back and Yuka replayed. Is a scrapped crossover for Banjo-Kazooie a comeback idea for Yuka replayed? Or we can also recontextualize this question into another consistency here, which is sequels. People want to know about the return of these characters. Whether it's Banjo-Kazooie, whether it's getting a pure 2D side-scrolling game, what would it take to get to that point? And maybe that kind of gives us some insight in the companies commission a game, it goes to designers. What would it take for some of those things to happen in 2025?
So Rare hasn't got the capacity to do any more games yet. They're doing Sea of Thieves, and that's a big game that involves updating it all the time. So Rare would never do any of those games ever again, I don't think. It would take another studio to present Microsoft and Rare with a good idea. So here's our idea for Banjo 3, and they'd have to like it, and then say, okay, you can make it. And that's been the same with any of the IPs like Perfect Dark or Conquer or whatever. If some studio came up with a great plan and a great design for a new game, then Microsoft would look at it, Rare would look at it and decide. And that would be the only way it would get made, right? And I've got to say, I know there's 2 studios right now that want to make Banjo 3, and I know that for definite. Whether they actually get to make it, I don't know. But I know they definitely want to do it. There's 2 studios that definitely want to make Banjo 3, right? But they'd have to present the idea to Rare, to Microsoft, they'd have to like it, and then start production. And also, I'm a little bit dubious about, I feel like the Banjo games in particular, because we're so close to those games, that humour, is a very kind of British humour in those games, right? It's very kind of, it's got a weird quirk to it, right? I think another studio, would have to get that quirkiness, right? I think without it, it wouldn't be the same. So I'm not saying it's impossible, I just think it's unlikely. And also, one other thing, is that all the hardcore Banjo fans like you guys, right? You're never gonna like a new Banjo game. You're gonna go, it's not the same. And no matter how hard people try, you're always gonna go, it's not great. And so that's always the problem with trying to redo games that are that old. You guys are gonna go, we don't like it.
This is why we have to make new stuff. It's great, this whole convention, it's great talking about the past. And I know some things are better left in the past. When you rediscover them, you realize it's not actually as good as I remember it. But we've got at Playtonic now quite a good number of the design devs and artists from those original teams. And why drag something out of the grave and rebuild it when you can make something new, but you've got the DNA from those hits back then. I mean, we say we've got many projects on the go. We haven't just got ukulele.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example.
Steve's been working very hard with the rest of the team for the last couple of years, working on the You Can Replay Me, which comes out pretty soon.
October the 9th.
October the 9th, everybody. On wishlist it, bought by now.
On every system under the sun.
But I've been fortunate enough to be spread around on different projects and a lot of smoke and mirrors, putting things together and just trying things out. And it's when we look at what we've actually got at the moment, we've got a great future and a great lineup of different concepts, all completely different genres. So why put banjo there anyway, when you've got the creators that originally created banjo? Why would you want them to just recreate that old rubbish looking bear with yellow pants on? Why not make something new? Because you did it before, and so I want people in 20 years time to say the game that you guys made in 2025 is the new banjo. You know, things move on, don't they?
They do. And I have to say, the last 2 minutes on the stage have been the most honest that the CGC stage has ever been, and I appreciate the heck out of that. But one thing, we got to wrap this up here pretty soon, but there's been so many questions, and if you have time, which you should and you will, you need to go check them out over there at their booth. It's towards the front there of them, of the CGC main aisle there, because there's a ton of questions that still were not answered here. And if you want an opportunity, meet these guys, maybe get a signature, you definitely want to go and check them out over there. But I want to wrap up with something that got asked undoubtedly the most. That is the Donkey Kong rap. People love the Donkey Kong rap, and I think that's both ironically and unironically at the same time. So, number one, where did that come from? How that was? Was it just a product of the 90s? What's the high level on that? We gotta know.
So, George Andreas, who was the lead designer on Donkey Kong 64, when DK came back on the Super NES, right, the start of the game, Dave Wise kind of morphed the old tune into a new, more updated tune, right? And so the plan was, we need to bring DK up to date into the 90s.
Totally rad.
And raps and hip-hop's a gigantic music force. So George's like, we need to do a rap. And I was like, all right, I'll do a rap, fair enough. But he wanted to be, there was a track at the time called It's Like That, It's the Way It Is by Run DMC and Jason Nevins. And it was quite a fast track, and I was like, no, George, it needs to be slow. You know, that funky Cold Medina track, I like that, right? And
funky Cold Medina, thank you for that memory, thank you.
I found this drum loop on a synthesizer. I said, yeah, we're going to use this. And so I guess it's my fault. So George wrote the lyrics.
I wouldn't call it a fault. I would call it a success.
Well,
just side notes.
But your interpretation is different to mine. I've got George and Chris Sutherland, who's a lead programmer on Banjo-Kazooie, were the rappers. And the banjo team with Steve, Ed, Greg, Chris Peel were the chorus, you know, like that. And so I put it together and thought it was hilarious. Like, oh yes, it's so funny, everyone's going to think it's fantastic, it's hilarious. But of course everyone thought it was shit, right? So when it came out, I was slightly shocked that everyone went, yeah, Kirkhope's trying to write a really, credible rap track and it's clearly rubbish. And I was like, well yeah, it's supposed to be rubbish really, but I feel like I've had to wait 30 years, but I think people kind of like it now because it's so bad that it's kind of good now. It's in that realm of being the worst rap track in the history of rap tracks, right? I fully admit it. And I also feel like the little kids who were not teenagers back then liked it, right? They got the joke, they danced around the lounge to it with the parents and thought it was cool, but the teenagers, and rightly so, thought it was shit, because it was shit, right? So that's how I feel about the DK. And I got to say, like,
shit is shit, and that's
shit,
it.
yeah, shit. But bizarrely enough, I feel like with me, the DK rap and the GoldenEye watch pause music, that thing that everyone thinks is amazing now, I feel like no matter how big an amazing orchestral piece I write now, no one cares. It's just the pause music and the DK rap. On my tombstone, I would say, here is the body of Grant Kirkhope. He wrote the DK rap and the GoldenEye pause music, and that was it. He's now dead.
Well, Grant, I mean, are you sure you wrote it though? Because I've not seen the credit in the Mario movie.
I beg your pardon.
That's a good point.
We don't talk about the Mario movie.
That's why I avoided the topic, folks. But, there was another thing, unilaterally, people said it, they wanted to hear the DK rap. But here's the thing, it's about the DK family, right? The whole Kong family. And so, I think that we all together should do the DK rap.
I love that.
That sounds like the best idea ever.
I would agree. So if you don't mind, can we switch over? Todd, can you advance that deck for us? And let's everyone together.
Are you ready?
Let's do it. We have the first two verses, not the full thing. Here we go. Let's go and hear it. Let's give it over to Cranky Kong. Come on now.
Here he is.
Get that sound up.
We can't hear him.
So we're finally here.
For you, if you know the words, you can join in too. But it's all
Together, if you want to rap, take me through this monkey rap. DK, Donkey Kong, DK the bunch, Donkey Bell,
he's the back. Take some tail. His coconut gun can fire his burst. If he shoots you, it's gonna hurt. He's bigger, he's faster, and stronger too. He's the first member of the DK crew. DK, Donkey Kong, DK. Donkey Kong is here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please get on your feet and do me a favor and give a big round of applause to our amazing special guests, Steve, Kevin, and Grant, for joining us on the main stage here today.
Thank you very much. And if you want to know how not to draw tomorrow, I'm doing a seminar on this stage.
That's right.
For charity.
That's right. It's for the Cleveland Gaming Foundation. We are giving scholarships to those local developers. So be here 11 a.m. tomorrow. He's going to show you how to draw, and you can even draw along.
How to get a game industry job pretending you can draw. Okay.
There it is. Folks, we'll see you later on here at Cosplay Masquerade next at 4:30. Thanks for coming.